And we're off. So Chexhuman is starting off in the Sanctuary, finds half magic in the chest there. FuzzyGames is right behind. So it's going to be interesting to see what our runners choose to do at the start here. Looks like FuzzyGames has a little bit of trouble with some hotkeys, but getting that sorted out, we're going to go ahead and continue onward. Chexhuman searching the Sanctuary Bonk Rocks finds a full heart container. I know Chexhuman does like to check the Lumberjack first and then hop right up to Death Mountain. He does like putting Kakariko off because there are a number of side quests that tend to show up in Kakariko, like turning in the flutes, the bottle, the powder. And so being able to put that all into one go is a bit more advantageous in his mind. So he's going to check the Lumberjack and I imagine maybe the Lost Woods, but then head straight to Death Mountain, possibly for a Graveyard Ledge check because that has a bunch of bombs in it. But we do see a tree pull here with some small magics, and we got a couple of large magics off of some drops, plus the full refill from getting the half magic, so we're not really hurting for that at the time being. Alright, so it looks like that in the Lumberjack Cave, we do see a red rupee up there, so not quite going to be required to kill Aghanim that we know of yet. We also get a map check from both of the runners showing that Desert Palace is a green pendant with a red crystal on Tower of Hera. Now, the red crystals don't actually mean quite as much in Overworld glitches, especially when we get the mirror. In fact, only when we get the mirror, because we have a way of getting into the Pyramid Ferry using just the mirror and the boots that we have from the start. But still, it can be a good idea to keep an eye on those just in case mirror winds up being very late into the seed. In Lost Woods, we pick up a little bit of ammo here and there, and Chex actually armed a water walk off of the hole that he dropped down to, I think. Nope, never mind. He's going up to Death Mountain immediately, using a classical Death Mountain ascent, doing an upward teleport over the transition, and then he has to fix his camera here. If he doesn't do that, then the transition into the cave takes an extra 2 minutes. So now he's got to go through the Dark Room, rescue the old man, and we'll get that mountain saving point very early on. And that one is very useful because we can do a whole bunch of different clips on Death Mountain to reach different areas of the Dark World very quickly. So being able to do that quickly from a saving quit is very nice. Meanwhile, FuzzyGames did choose to go into Kakariko very early on, and we're going to get a look at all these chests in town. Inside Blind's Hut, we get some rupees, some more rupees, a bottle, which is good. That's one of our little fetch quests that I was mentioning earlier, and a glove. So the glove doesn't unlock too much. It unlocks the Checkerboard Cave, Hookshot Cave, the Spike Cave, and not too much else. I guess Cold Stare. But there's a lot of different areas that we can reach, even when we don't have a glove, that you would normally consider glove-locked if you're not playing with the Overworld glitches logic. So now Chexhuman is trying to set up a downward teleport. He gets it. This takes him right to the Graveyard Ledge Cave, where he will get a nice refill on bombs. Meanwhile, FuzzyGames has made his way into Kakariko Well, and we'll be getting these chests here. So far, it's a bunch of junk, as was the Graveyard Ledge Cave. And you may notice that Chexhuman wound up in Houlihan Cave. Well, that's actually one of the consequences that comes about when you come off of Death Mountain down to the graveyard area, whether through different Death Mountain descents or teleports or whatnot. So it can be pretty useful to do that early on, because that gives you a nice set of 225 rupees right off the bat. Alright, so FuzzyGames is going to turn in that bottle for a sick kid check. Gets a red 20 out of it. Chexhuman is going to clip to what we lovingly refer to as Cave 45. Just a quick little downward teleport, and inside we find another red rupee. We're finding a lot of those already. We find the mitts in the back of the tavern, so we already have some Dark World access, but we are missing that Moon Pearl, so it doesn't really give us anything quite yet. Now, one thing about the mitts is that gives us logical access to Ice Palace, provided we can defeat the Freezor in the front area. Usually in overworld glitches, we don't like seeing that, but we do like to see a sword in the library. That's going to be a nice weapon to have. It's always good to have a weapon early on, especially because Desert is very close by, and we can go through and clear out that dungeon pretty quickly. Especially if we have a fire source, we can go kill Landmolas. On the race game, we see a red rupee.
Hello.
And hello there, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing just fine. Just going through the seeds so far. I missed the cape that we saw in Link's house, so now we get that on FuzzyGames' side.
Alright, anything else I've missed so far?
The sword in the library and a couple of bottles in Kakariko. Also mitts. FuzzyGames has mitts, and Chexhuman, I don't think has either glove yet. Oh wait, no, he did the back of the tavern, so he has one of them. Meanwhile, FuzzyGames is going to the water gates to check those couple of areas.
Does that look good now?
Oh
no,
yeah.
I'm not Sakura. I'm not Sakura. I'm Math Girl.
Yeah, I think that's all right for now. I didn't see anything else between the two runners that was a unique item. Alright, so we get to avoid the sunken treasure. It's just a piece of heart. So now we get to see what's in the mini Moldorm cave. Gonna be really nice to clear that out with the sword. Good to have that early game weapon. FuzzyGame employing a couple of bombs to hopefully get these Moldorms without needing to cross over the pits. Got two of them with one, but is having a little bit of trouble getting this last guy here. He's just juking left and right, dodging the bombs. There we go.
Alright. Ooh, sword.
That's our second one. That doesn't quite give us good Aghanim access. We still need the lamp before that's logically available. And realistically, the only thing that Aghanim will unlock for us in this seed is going to be a Moon Pearl on the pyramid. We've already seen the Lumberjack, which just has a red rupee on it, so we're not too worried about defeating Aghanim for that.
Yeah, what was it, kid? Sorry, I looked away for a second.
I don't recall, but I don't think it was anything that we needed to worry about.
Okay.
In the Ice Rod Cave, we get another 20 rupees, so we're done with the South Shore area as Chexhuman is heading over to Deserts, showing one of the nice little shortcuts that lets you skip needing the book to get inside the palace.
Yep.
So now FuzzyGames is heading toward the escape sequence. We'll be checking out Uncle and such. There is no guaranteed weapon there, but we could find something nonetheless, so it's still a good idea to do this. Even though some people do refer to it as the fourth pendant dungeon. Inside Desert, we get a hint that there is a Moon Pearl in Village of Outcasts, which is actually a pretty good piece of information. That means that we know the mirror is going to be logically available before we need to go into the Dark World.
Interesting.
The only way we actually have to get into Village of Outcasts with... that is within logic, is to do a mirror clip off of Death Mountain. You can, of course, get there other ways, such as doing some select buffered clips so you can move one frame at a time as a bunny to get off of Death Mountain, but we do not logically require that of our runners. So far, the rest of Desert Palaces seem to be a bunch of junk. I didn't notice anything of import there. We still need to open up the big chest, but otherwise, unless we find a fire source, this trip to Desert is just about finished.
So, we shall see. Nope, just a compass.
Meanwhile, FuzzyGames is nearing Zelda's cell. There's a couple of chests here in combination with the ball and chain guards, so we just got a little bit of combat left before we see those two items. Getting a lot of junk, though. I mean, we have 2 swords in the midst, but outside of that, nothing really screams out as far as to where we need to go next, outside of that hint from within deserts. So now Chex is headed over to Checkerboard Cave, gonna put those gloves to work.
Bombos.
That does give us some access to Ice Palace. Perhaps the mirror could be in there.
It's possible. I think.
It is. We are able to do a dungeon bunny revival, despite the fact that Ice Palace is a Dark World dungeon. If you take a death while as a bunny inside the dungeon, you'll revive at the entrance as Link. So we can use that to complete sections of the dungeon. Now, it's not going to feel good to go there without the hammer, and I imagine that FuzzyGames is going to at least be looking for that before doing an Ice Palace dip. But it is something to keep in the back of your mind.
I mean, hammer can always be in there.
It could as well, yeah, but it's, again, one of those things you kind of want to put off until you're able to do more damage to the dungeon.
Hammer and ice is always a fun one.
So now we're getting a check of Sahasrahla and likely the Eastern Palace as Chexhuman goes through the South Shore. Inside of Sahasrahla's closet, we're just getting more and more junk. Although we still don't even have enough rupees for Zora yet. Chex might, because he did do a Houlihan after doing a Death Mountain descent, and FuzzyGames has not done that yet. Unfortunately, FuzzyGames is looking to try to arm a spin speed while facing into the staircase. You actually can't do arm spin speed if you're facing into a wall. So you need to be facing up or down on those thin staircases if you want your spin speed to activate properly.
Yeah, because I think the reasoning is that you actually grab the wall rather than dash.
Yeah, just certain A-button actions take priority over others, and as you were saying, the grab does take precedence over the dash in that instance.
Also, do we know what the Light World dungeons are?
Yes, we do. Desert is a green pendant, Terra is a red crystal, and Eastern is a regular crystal.
Thank you. I'm gonna guess that we haven't seen Dark World yet.
No, although Chexhuman did take a quick dip up to Death Mountain and rescued the old man already, so we are done with that section for now. There's certainly more to do there, though. Alright, so nothing quite yet in Eastern, as Chexhuman makes his way over to the Ice Rod Cave. I imagine he's going to try to arm a water walk as he exits the cave to hopefully check some Zora area stuff. He does have enough money to pay the big fish, so we might see that item real quick here.
Yeah, that could be interesting. So, I know how it works, but I don't know why it works. Like, why is it that dashing near a hole gives you an armed or a water walk saved?
It has to do with confusing a bit of Link's state. He actually gets a separate state for when he's slipping as if about to fall into a hole versus just walking normally. And when you're dashing away, it tends to keep that state armed. And for some reason, when you jump southward into deep water, you're able to walk on water. I mean, the only thing I know is that it confuses the state. Beyond that, I have no idea why you're able to walk on it. Game's weird, man.
This game's well programmed. If you
it does very well. It refuses to die despite all the nonsense that we're able to do with it. At least on Zora's Ledge, we do see that it is useless, so we don't need to come back here once we've got the flippers. So now we're going to get to see that nice Zora item.
This blue mail, I'm not sure that's worth 500 rupees.
In some instances it could be, but when we're lacking the pearl, and we'll be lacking it for a while in the Dark World, it might be a bit of a bother, because a lot of times you're going to need to do a dungeon bunny revival, and when you've got blue mail on top of that, it makes those dungeon revivals take a little bit longer.
Yeah. Then again, if we're talking Ice Palace, Freezors do a lot of damage. What is it, 4 hearts on green mail?
Yes, and then probably 2 on blue. I don't know the exact number, though. Meanwhile, we're getting a back of escape check from FuzzyGames. More and more junk. And on Spectacle Rock, we've got more and more junk.
So Cassius, what's sick kid? Thanks, game. That's not gonna work, I don't think.
No, it will.
It
Yeah, you just have to be a little bit into the wall and then somewhere near the bottom of the pit for that to work. Pits are very weird in this game. They often overtake other bits of collision. And we're actually going to see an Overworld bomb clip from Chexhuman to get up to Tower of Hera here real quick, which is kind of nice. You don't get to see those all too often. They don't really crop up in too many places, but when you can use them, they're very nice.
Indeed.
So now FuzzyGames is heading up to Death Mountain, doing the classical DMA. Gonna have to correct his camera to go into the old man cave.
Because this totally makes perfect sense.
It makes enough sense.
Flippers is held by the Kakari. Oh man. Now
So that means
now that is a hint.
yeah, that means we do need to beat Desert before we get the flippers.
Now the question is if flippers are actually required. I think that the only thing that flippers are logically required for in this is Swamp, isn't it?
Yep, that's correct, because we are required to know how to do fake flippers for overworld glitches. So you'll have access to Ice Palace even if you don't have the flippers.
I wonder if you could require it for some, like, bunny stuff. Oh wait, no. Flippers don't even work in bunny, never mind.
They do to an extent. They allow you to do one little extra thing as a bunny that we call wriggling, which lets you get a bunny over deep water. And in fact, I think that used to be somewhat required by logic back when we had Overworld Bunny Revival, but that just wasn't really within the scope that we decided later on, so Overworld Bunny Revival, while allowed in Overworld glitches, is not required, so there still is only Swamp Palace for the Flippers requirements.
You know, I find it funny that you guys say that all, you know, minor glitches can be required, but, like, you know, that's actually allowed in my, no glitches races. Now, why you would ever want to do that is beyond me, but...
Well, if you're Karen and want to defeat a seed without the Moon Pearl, you can use that to good effect.
But, like, you're allowed to do it.
Yes. And now, when we don't require all minor glitches, because we don't require things like hovering either. So, just some minor glitches are required.
Yeah, but when is hovering actually logically going to... Well, I guess, aside from Nordworm 2, that is...
How about Bow-Locked Pod?
There's still potion glitch.
What if you never find a potion?
Good point.
Or even Hookshot Cave?
That's valid. Although that one with major glitches you can do, from what I understand. Or at least no glitches.
When you start getting to more when you get into more esoteric major glitches, just saying that you have access to something doesn't really mean much, because you have access to a lot of things with more major glitches than what we can show here in this tournament.
We really ought to have a major glitches tournament. Like, just for the fun of it.
That might be sometime in the future. But in the meantime, we're getting a Paradox Cave check out of Chexhuman here, after completing Hera. We did take a look at what was on the floating island. I don't recall if it was anything good. Otherwise, I think I would have made a note for it.
don't think so. Yeah, I think that EG is banned in major glitches.
Yes, and beyond that, the way the randomizer is built is that Ganon is invulnerable in the 4th phase until you've completed the goal of the seed, which is true for this as well. We do still need to kill all 7 of the crystal dungeons and get those crystals from the bosses, as well as defeat Aghanim 2 before Ganon is vulnerable in his 4th phase. So, despite the access that we have to Ganon, and Ganon's tower for that matter, we do still need to get all the crystal dungeons completed.
I think they were referring to the walk to the Triforce that any person does. Which just completely skips the Ganon fight. Anyway, though.
We are getting a couple of blue potions out of Chexhuman here, so I wonder if he might be opting to go for a quicker dip into Dark World for the Moon Pearl, despite knowing that the mirror is somewhere in the world that he can reach right now.
Well, hey, it's not a bad play. Just, like, keep the knowledge in mind that mirror is somewhere accessible, but go ahead and get the Moon Pearl and start your dipping around elsewhere.
Right, because mirror doesn't really lock that much for us in Overworld glitches. Again, it's primarily Swamp Palace, but many of the areas that typically require the mirror, such as the Graveyard Ledge or K45, we've already seen those dudes being able to clip up slopes and such.
Yeah.
So now we see FuzzyGames doing what we call T-Rock Climb, despite it being done in the Light World. This clip works the same in both the Light and the Dark Worlds, you just have to have the appropriate cues for it. And we get to see this nice fancy land bridge that the developers left for us. It's so convenient.
I know, right? Oh, it's just a bottle on floating island. So that's all 4 bottles, I think.
Yep. Alright, so it looks like that Chexhuman is now going to go through the escape sequence as FuzzyGames is finishing up Death Mountain here. So we know that there's not really going to be anything of use on Death Mountain that we haven't already seen. And the same goes for the escape. Actually, that's not entirely true. I don't know if FuzzyGames went for the Dark Cross chest, the one in the very first one in the sewers.
I don't think he did. But it might also have been in the map.
It might have been, yeah. We did see the key in the back 3 chests of the sewers. But I'm pretty terrible about remembering when I've seen the map when I'm playing normally, let alone when watching someone else play. So we may have seen it on FuzzyGames stream and I might have missed it.
Well, we'll see.
Now, in terms of locations we haven't quite seen yet that our runners do have access to, Hobo. I don't think we've seen either runner go for that yet, despite it being available with some fake flippers.
Oh, well, that could be interesting if it has the mirror. You know, though, if we do end up going to Ice Palace, I bet they'll probably do that if they haven't already at that point.
I'm not so sure. With Chex already having that blue potion, I would rather go through Village of Outcasts and such in search of the Moon Pearl and possibly finding the mirror over there than hoping to find the mirror inside of Ice Palace. Or, I mean, not the mirror in Village of Outcasts, the hammer or something.
Yeah, valid point, but that wouldn't be logically required. But, you know, it would be nice to be able to full clear Ice Palace.
Alright, so we are going to get that Dark Cross check out of Chexhuman.
You know, it kind of annoys me still that Bombos doesn't like torches. Like, just saying, it should totally like torches. Just 10 arrows. Okay.
Alright, so we've seen Desert Palace, we've seen Deserts, Eastern, Hera, we've seen much of Death Mountain, we've seen Kakariko. Maybe the answer is actually Ice Palace for that mirror.
Ah, thanks, chat. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm on double duty today, so I'm used to it, but I might still miss things more than I would just on tracker.
Alright, so we are getting that hobo check finally. And we find...
Play rupees.
Ha! Well, that does kind of say it's Ice Palace then.
You know, I was about to ask how the game is expecting them to get to Ice Palace, and then I remembered they just have mitts and they could just go straight through the front door.
Kind of interesting that Chex opted to use that blue potion then to flute over to Eastern. I mean, it is a nice way of getting there, especially with that clip to wrap from the bottom of the screen all the way up to the top. I figured he was going to use it for possibly getting a Link State in Village of Outcasts.
Yeah, I think he's got a few of them.
Maybe. And since he does know the Pearl is in Village of Outcasts, he might be thinking he doesn't need it quite as much later on.
Have we seen Eastern yet?
Yes, FuzzyGames went through Eastern earlier.
Okay. I was gonna say, there's really nothing stopping the mirror from being in here if we haven't. So right now, both runners kind of retracing each other's steps.
Alright, so we do come back up to Death Mountain for FuzzyGames. Going into Hera, we've already completed Hera on both sides.
Thanks, game.
So, what are we going to see out of FuzzyGames here? Alright, we're going to the Dark World. What are we doing from here?
There's a lot of things we could be doing, or he could just be saving and quitting.
FuzzyGames might be trying to stick within the logic, although he might not have realized that, oh wait, I don't have Pearl quite yet. It is in Village of Outcasts, and we do need to find that mirror before we can get there logically. We'd have to figure out what exactly can we do to find that mirror. Alright, so FuzzyGames did know that if you do that clip to hair a little bit incorrectly and wind up getting yourself stuck in the wall, you can just hold up to jump off of the front face of the tower there, which is good to know.
This game's well programmed. You know what's funny? I've actually crashed my console trying to hula hand. And it was just like, isn't that why hula hand exists?
Alright, so we are getting a check for Super Bunny Cave on FuzzyGames side, using the mitts on the East Dark World Death Mountain to go through this cave here. Now, we call this Super Bunny Cave because when you fall down a hole in a cave or in a dungeon or something, you actually become Super Bunny. Now, Super Bunny has a few extra properties. You can now slash your sword, you can dash, and you can open chests. So we need to have at least that last one be able to open up the chests up here at the top of the cave. Now, you do have to be careful as a Super Bunny, because if you take damage, bonk, or walk too close to a pit, then you will lose your Super Bunny status. But luckily, falling in a hole rearms it, so we're not too worried yet. And inside Super Bunny Cave, we find a heart container and a piece of heart.
Garbage! You know, I gotta ask, can Super Bunny Cave have Moon Pearl in this logic?
Yes, it can, and in fact, the previous race that I commentated had a Moon Pearl in Super Bunny Cave, and one of the racers forgot that that could happen, and actually had to forfeit from that, so it does help to know exactly what all is available to you at all times. Even though a lot of the world is open to you, you have to know what exactly is locked off. Alright, so now it looks like that Chexhuman is setting up the fake flute. There we go. Now, the fake flute is using a blue potion and a screen transition on the exact same frame. And it brings up the flute menu, because drinking a potion and causing a transition causes two actions at the same time, and instead of resolving only one of them, it resolves the value of those two actions combined.
Wait, so is he in Light World or is he in Dark World?
He's in the actual Dark World. It just has some Light World graphical elements because of where the flute dropped him off.
Right, because the game thinks that you have to be in Light World to be fluting.
Right, and it will always drop you off onto a Light World Overworld screen. However, that does not change which world the game thinks you're in. So right now, he is still in the Dark World. Now, for those of you who may have missed it, we know that the Moon Pearl is in the Village of Outcasts thanks to a hint tile. However, we have not found the mirror yet. At this point, I believe the mirror is probably in Ice Palace, since we do have Bombos and Mitts. That gives us enough access to at least open a few chests there. However, since we know the Pearl is in Village of Outcasts, it seems like a better ploy to go to the Dark Village using a fake flute than to do a couple of dips into Ice Palace.
Yep. Is Chex gonna be able to check those chests in Village Outcasts?
Yes, because he will be able to, just he'll have to do something a little different. He might need to do a Death Warp, or barring that, have to Super Bunny into the houses for the chest game and the C-shaped house.
How is he gonna have Super Bunny unless he just takes a hit into him? But that's rather difficult.
Not too terribly, though. I mean, they have enough hearts, plus there are the thieves that you can use if you're worried about taking damage. And you can lure them all the way up to the houses where you need to get to those items. However, that is not required in logic. At this point, the logic assumes that they have mirror if they're in Village of Outcasts looking for progression. And when you have the mirror, you can also trigger the Super Bunny state by going inside the door and using the mirror on the same frame.
The unique item is in a hookshot cave. Now, I know that Chex can hover. Do you know if Fuzzy can hover?
I don't know if Fuzzy can hover, so we are going to need to see the hook shot from Fuzzy before we see those items on that side.
I mean, it's entirely possible he can, and just we don't know it.
Also true. We do, however, find the shovel up in the attic with the bombable hole in Thieves Town, so that gives us one more location. However, we know that that cannot be the mirror.
Indeed. Also, people in chat, person in chat pointing out that Fuzzy cannot indeed hover, so he'll have to have. Ooh, that's painful, Act.
Alright, so FuzzyGames is going through Desert Palace, the back of it. However, we have not seen a fire source with which to light the torches to unlock the way to Landmola's, so unfortunately this is a bit of a waste of time for FuzzyGames. Now, truth be told, we are going to need to complete Desert if we want to get the flippers, because we do know that the flippers are held by Sahasrahla from a hit tile.
And Fuzzy forgets that, you know, you kind of need a fire source.
Alright, so Thieves Town is cleared for Chexhuman. No sign of the mirror, although we know it couldn't be in there anyway. But he is going to have to Super Bunny into either the chest game or the C-shaped house in order to check those two locations for the Moon Pearl.
Alright.
We do get a map check. We see pendants in Skull Woods and Turtle Rock, and the other red crystal is Palace of Darkness. Alright, so now Chex is trying to do a Death Warp in Thieves Town, but the Zazics are not cooperating with him. Doing a Death Warp in Thieves Town is actually going to put him in what we call Fake Dark World. Now, what that means is when you take a death before Aghanim 1 is defeated, and in Rando when you don't have the mirror, the game will automatically put you back into the Light World. However, since you just came from Thieves Town, you'll be on that Dark World Overworld screen. However, the game still thinks you're in Light World, so when it checks for the Moon Pearl when you leave, it sees you're also in the Light World and makes you a Link. So now he can use that to go into the C-shaped house and chest game here. However, despite being on this Dark World Overworld screen here, if he causes an Overworld transition screen off of here, such as to go towards Skull Woods or something, he will wind up in the regular Light World.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, there's the Moon Pearl.
We knew it had to be one of these two. Meanwhile, it looks like that FuzzyGames is going to be going for Ganon's Tower clip?
Looks like it.
Now, unfortunately for Fuzzy, this is out of logic. This is not something he needs to be doing right now.
Oh my!
And there's our hookshot, so we might be seeing a Check and Hookshot Cave sometime soon. However, Chexhuman is going to wind up transitioning to the Light World right here. He is now on the library screen, not headed towards Stumpy as he might be thinking. Or he could be thinking of checking the dig spot because he did get that shovel from the Thieves Town attic.
Possibly. Yeah, it looks like he knew what he was up to.
So, alright, so FuzzyGames has abandoned that GT clip for now. That's understandable. Doing that sort of a clip is rather difficult since you have to have very precise movements and timings to be able to move one frame at a time using the select menu like that. Alright, so FuzzyGames is trying to spin speed through some part of the cliff here. I'm not sure exactly what he's trying to get to. Unfortunately, he gets stuck and will have to save and quit out of that position. Meanwhile, Chexhuman, after performing a Turtle Rock climb, is going into Hookshot Cave to check out these items. He knows there's something here, thanks to the hint that he saw.
Well, that's a unique item. Certainly not the one he was hoping for. Fire rod, okay.
That's a bit more worthwhile. So that gives us access to the back bit of Skullwoods. We can finish that dungeon off entirely, despite it being a pendant.
Oh dear, FuzzyGames. Stuck again.
Yeah, there's a bit of a trick to getting that jump to work consistently. The trick being that you actually need to walk down the slope while you have your spin speed armed. Because that sets you up your position to work properly so that you're jumping on the same place every time. Otherwise, you're kind of leaving it up to a 50-50 shot.
Oh my, I think he got it again.
Alright, so we know that we need the ether to open up the Turtle Rock front. That may or may not be relevant to our runners at the time being, but it looks like that Chexhuman is headed down to Catfish using what we lovingly refer to as a funny auto-walk thing, or FOT for short. It happens when you land on a transition in a peculiar way, such that when you cause the transition, Link just kind of walks halfway down the screen, ignoring everything in his path.
Yep. Also, I actually saw a scene like a week or two ago where the pedestal was actually logically required for the Turtle Rock medallion. Of course, neither runner did that, but it was pretty funny to see just the same.
FuzzyGames is having a lot of trouble with this clip to the graveyard ledge. Meanwhile, we get a check at the pyramid item, and Chex deems it not worth it, so must have been a piece of heart or something.
Oh, okay. Chex, what are you doing?
He's swimming past the hammer pegs on the bridge here.
That doesn't look like where he's going.
It is.
Oh.
Because there's hammer pegs on the bridge that lead toward Hype Cave
hammers.
here. Yes.
Alright. Just 20 rupees, 3 bombs, single arrow, powder. Okay, I'll give that a 2.
Now, we do actually have access to the Powderback Cave, despite not having the hammer or the mirror. There is actually an in-logic clip that you need to know to be able to reach the Bat Cave without either of those items. Trex trying to clip through the slope there, decides it not worth it, goes for the rock instead. Meanwhile, FuzzyGames is, I think, still trying to get that graveyard ledge clip to work.
Just 3 bombs from Stumpy. Oh, Fuzzy. this really isn't looking good for Fuzzy.
Especially since we know that the mirror isn't in there, since Chexhuman checked the graveyard ledge very early on in this seed. Inside the Mire Hut, however, we find the silver arrows and the cane of Birna.
Nice. Also, did you see the Mire Battalion? I didn't. Oh, there it is. Ether.
So both of our dungeons are locked by Ether to the front.
So, Amphibious. Bottle glitches in the Overworld are allowed, as well as Pod Potion glitch. In-dungeon glitches, though, aren't allowed unless they're minor. I believe is how the rules work, right?
Yes, minor glitches of all sorts are allowed, but major glitches within dungeons and caves are not.
Oh! I think Fuzzy got the up to Tarahera finally.
I don't think that's where he was trying to go.
No, but it might be the first step in what he's trying to do.
He is pulling out a blue potion, so we might be seeing a fake flute out of FuzzyGames, doing the same thing that Chex did earlier to get to Village of Outcasts, because he does know that the Moon Pearl is there.
Yep,
Meanwhile, Chexhuman is checking the Mitslock location of the Smith chain. We usually don't like seeing Mits that early, because it usually means that, yeah, there's going to be something on Smith's or Ice Palace.
Fuzzy having a little difficult. Oh no.
Please reset your console. Don't save and quit. Don't save and quit. Oh no. In those sort of circumstances, if you do a reset instead of a save and quit, you'll save your potion and be able to retry again without having to buy a new one.
I think he just realized that. Yeah, Fuzzy rewinds.
Unfortunately, we do get a forfeit out of FuzzyGames. However, it is up to Chexhuman to complete the seed to secure the win.
Well, do you want to ask him if he wants to interview? Did you see that?
No, I did not. What was in the Powderbat Cave?
Hammer.
Wonderful. So, like I was saying, you don't need the hammer or the mirror to get there. And since the powder... Well, no, the powder was available once you found Pearl. Actually, yeah, that's how it kind of works. You would need mirror to get Pearl, but you need Pearl to get the powder, and powder led to hammer, so you did need to know that clip to get to Powderbat Cave.
Yes, this was a forfeit. There was no DQ involved.
Alright, so we are getting that second dep into Desert Palace now that we have a fire source to light those torches at the tail end. And now we are getting that Landmola's fight. Luckily we have the Fire Rod and have magic, so that should make this a pretty quick boss fight. A nice long third jump there makes it possible to get the one cycle, and we are done with Desert Palace, which gives us our green pendant and thus access to our flippers on Sahasrahla.
Yep, which will be required today with Swamp being a crystal.
Alright, I think Chex was headed toward Skull Woods, but then realized, wait a minute, that's a pendant. There's other things I could be doing now. Like Ice Palace for your mirror. Although he is going to go and grab those flippers first real quick, just to make getting into Ice Palace a little bit easier.
And there they are.
Alright, so here we go through Ice Palace. We know that one of our 3 items has to be the mirror, but there are 2 more that we could find within this dungeon. In addition to the mirror, we are also on the lookout for the Cane of Samaria for Misery Mire, and the bow for Eastern and Palace of Darkness.
Okay, it's just a vamp in the first chest. Also, if you can keep track of what's going on for like a couple minutes, that'd be great. They're gonna go for a minute.
Alright. Alright, so we figure out that the Book of Mudora requires a bomb. Now, we haven't seen that yet, so which places can we reach that needs a bomb? That's actually kind of interesting. Alright, so we do get a nice Palace Bomb jump out of Chexhuman. We still have a few more checks here that we can possibly make. He's going to head north and head to the right side first, using that hook shot to get past the set of pits here, plus the red jellyfish. We're also going to see the other hint tile. And we figure out that there's a unique item in Hera Basement. Now, we did complete Hera earlier, but we didn't have a fire source at the time. So knowing that it's a unique item down there is pretty nice. Alright, that's one of our items for Ice Palace. So there's one more that we know of other than the mirror. And we still haven't seen the big key for Ice Palace either. So that needs to show up in either this next chest in the Spike Room or in the Iced Tea Room. For those of you who are just joining us, unfortunately we had a forfeit from FuzzyGames. He was having a lot of trouble getting one of the clips down, and in addition to that, wound up unfortunately using one of his potions improperly and save and quit, which also lost that potion to him entirely, and decided to forfeit due to the troubles he was running under. On Chexhuman's side, though, we find the mirror inside the Freezor chest, so there's still one more item we gotta find here. And we are gonna check out the Iced Tea Room. And there's a small key. So, our last item either has to be in the big chest or on Cold Stare. Again, all we're looking for at this point is Cane of Samaria for Misery Mire, and the bow for Eastern and Palace of Darkness.
Hey, I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Alright, have we found? Mirror?
We found the mirror. We also found a heart container, but there's still one more item left in Ice Palace.
Just toy rupees.
Alright, so that's one of our dungeons down. With that mirror, we do now have access to Swamp Palace to figure that out. And luckily, without Aghanim 1 defeated, when we save and quit, we go right back to the Light World. And it looks like he's headed straight for Swamp Palace. Alright, so there's going to be a number of items we could possibly see in here in Swamp Palace. It's going to be interesting to see if he goes for a left side check or straight to Argus. Either one seems pretty good at this point.
Oh. You know, it's an interesting idea. Like, I like to see when people just do everything except for the left side and then decide if they want to do that after.
I think a lot of times it depends on where you find the big key. If you find it early, then it's fine. But if you find it late, do you turn around from the back end to return to the big chest? It's usually kind of down to whether or not you've already decided to do left side first or not, I think. So Chex does opt to go for the backside clear first. And we get to see if we find the big key back here, if he'll double back for it, or just combine that with his left side check as a re-entry.
Play root beans and shield. So either he's gonna get it on the boss or he's gonna have to decide, you know. Because I believe still in the Overworld glitches that one-to-one key logic applies, right? Like the big key
Yes.
can be in the big chest.
Yeah, outside of Desert Palace and Turtle Rock, really nothing has changed with the dungeon logic in terms of what you do once you're inside.
Alright, let's Sargus down. Just a compass. Alright, so there's 2 items left, as well as the big key. I'd go back in. How about you?
Absolutely, I would go back in. I'd hate to open up Swamp again.
Or not.
Well, that's up to him then. Alright, so now we're getting to see, well, there's one of 2 things that Chexhuman could be doing here. He could be going for a Ganon's Tower Clip, or, he's going for Spike Cave first, but after that, he might be going for the Pyramid Fairy or Ganon's Tower.
Also, Vince saying that there was a unique item in Ice Palette. Oh.
Yeah, the mirror.
That's right. I was thinking that he was saying that there was a unique item in Swamp. Never mind.
Alright, so interesting thing. A lot of entrances do fix your camera when you go inside and back out of them again. Spike Cave is one of those that doesn't do that. So you do need to keep track of where you are in the world. Now, we are getting a Ganon's Tower check out of here. And now, we're going to see a left side clear. You can't do too much on the right side, just the Hope Chest. Alright, so inside the Stalfos room, we are finding a bunch more keys. I guess I should reiterate that even though we are in Ganon's Tower currently, we are still not quite close to the end of the game. We do need to defeat all 7 of the crystal dungeons and their bosses before we can even think about killing Ganon, even if we've already killed Aghanim too.
Yeah, so we still have 3 wait, what? Oh yeah, 3 dungeons left we have to complete.
Well, there's our Ether Medallion that we know we need for Misery Mire.
Yep. You know, I wonder if we're gonna see Chexhuman just complete Aga 2. Depends if he knows the mimic clip. Slash if the bow.
He might know it, but he might not be comfortable in doing it quickly enough. I mean, that's one of those trade-offs you have to put in. Even though he knows that Fuzzy is forfeit. Yeah, we do find the Cane of Samaria. So now we have more access to Ganon's Tower basement, and we are now currently in what we like to refer to as bow mode. As soon as we find that bow, we're good to go to finish off this seed. And there's our Book of Mudora. Alright, so we did get a hint for that earlier, saying it was locked by a bomb. And I guess that counts for the rando room in Ganon's Tower.
You know, in major glitches, is it possible to get to Ganon, you know, without, like, doing the mimic clip without the bow? I would think it.
Yes, it's very easy to get to Aghanim 2 with other major glitches. However, those are not going to be allowed in this tournament.
Oh, yeah. I just was curious because it just, like, popped into my head suddenly.
Alright, so Chexhuman opted to refill his hearts there. He was really hoping to not get hit by the spark there. He wants to keep his full hearts here so he can use some beams against these ice Armos. However, he also does have the Cane of Birna, so I wonder if he's going to try to pull that out in the middle of this fight and hopefully get some more damage done quickly here. Could be that he's just going to try to stick to Tempered Sword Slashes now that he's taken some damage.
Birna actually works quite nicely against the Armos Knights.
You just have to make sure that his hits are either slashes or pokes or spins, because slashes are actually not going to do as much damage.
Wait, what?
Or no, I said that wrong. It's slashes or spins he wants. The pokes will do less because of Master Sword weirdness.
I was gonna say, I thought it was Master Sword that I acted up.
Yeah, I had that incorrect in how I said it. My apologies.
All good. So nothing in the basement.
Not true, we still have the right
Wow.
side to check.
Except Samaria. Yeah, that's true. Though I guess Ether was down here too, huh?
Yep.
Completely forgot about that. Oh, just put on your cape and do the cape glitch, please.
He doesn't have to. It doesn't matter how you get through this room. You gotta wait for the tiles no matter what. Why elongate it by putting in an extra menu?
Yeah, but still, it makes this room trivial.
It's already pretty easy just to dodge everything. As you can see, he's just kind of standing in the door, waiting for when the Wall Master's about to fall, then gets out of it and dodges some more. Besides, you want to be out in the middle so you can hit this last tile before the Wall Master comes back down again.
Oh, fetch quest.
Alright, so the last chest of the basement, we find another shield, some more bombs, another piece of hearts,
And 20 rupees.
and junk.
Deciding not to go up the tower.
Alright, so now I think we might be getting a check at the Pyramid Fairy. Alright, so the way that this works, or... Oh no, he's doing something different. He's doing what we like to call the Death Mountain Super Drop. Now, the way that this kind of works is there's a whole bunch of solid collision along the left side of Death Mountain here, and there's one little spot that you can jump, which lets Link just fall down the screen over and over and over again. And it can get you from the top of Death Mountain all the way down toward the bottom of the map really quickly.
That one's always fun to see. Also, where the heck is he going now?
He's actually heading up toward Desert Palace right now, so we can go reset his camera, I think.
What?
He just has to find his way inside of the one of the entrances.
Oh my goodness. So Scorpion Tape? No, however, you only have to sub to one channel to get the, those particular benefits. Such as, you know, being able to... Yeah. Also, yes, Fuzzy Forfeit, he, had a little bit of a mishap with trying to get wherever he was going off the mountain, but he just kept soft-walking.
Meanwhile, I think Chex has gotten a little lost on the Meyer Overworld. He's trying to figure out where the Meyer Medallion pad is, because he could activate it despite his camera being as messed up as it is. But, you kind of have to know where you are to be able to find the pad. Alright, so now he's got a little bit of semblance of where he is.
Oh yes, do you want to explain red and green lights? Because I don't know those.
I really don't, because those things are a monster to try to explain as far as how they work. I guess the simplest thing that I can... Oh, he... Alright, so... This is what Chex was looking for. Trying to activate the Ether Medallion while his screen was wrapped as far as it was.
Is it just trying to reset itself now?
Yeah, it is. But, he was actually trying to do that without scrolling his screen so much, so we'd get this really long lightning bolt. Unfortunately, because he got a little lost, the screen scroll didn't quite help him out too much.
Yeah, sorry, Chet. I'm not well versed in my nature glitches. No, Mount Kikero? Mount Kikero?
Cicero.
Cicero, okay. He didn't lock himself, but I think he just kind of gave up after, trying to get where he was going off the mountain and then failing a YBA and then saving quitting. Ooh, we're getting a hover.
Well, this is... He did get the big key from the bridge chest, so... He gave it one good try, and he's gonna go around and open some chests first, I guess.
We haven't seen Bo yet, have we? The bow?
No, we have not seen it yet. We're still on the lookout for the bow. But that's the only thing we need.
Could be a lot of places, though. Primate
Uh-oh.
never.
He did have just enough magic to light those 4 torches there. There's our bow. Alright, so now we're in go mode.
That was convenient.
Now, luckily, there is a full magic refill before heading down to the basement here. I'm sure Chex is going to pick that up. However, he will have to do the basement in the dark. We have not seen the lamp on either side. We didn't see it on Fuzzy's side earlier in the seed before the forfeit, and we haven't seen it as of yet on Chex's side.
Also, yes, this is the worst dark room in the game by far.
I disagree. I would find Agate Tower worse if you didn't have the fire rod.
Yeah, but at least Agate Tower, it's just that one room, and that you can just, like, fudge with a bunch of different things.
No, it's more than that. There's still the room with the pits and all that.
That's the room I was discussing.
At least this one doesn't really have pits that are in your way. It just has the one moving spike.
Yeah, but the first dark room in Meyer is the worst. Like, at least Agate Tower, there are little hacks you can do to get around the pit room.
Yeah, and there are some hacks you can do to put the block on the switch, such as carrying the block all the way to the bottom wall and then throwing it upward.
I've tried that and have never gotten it to work.
Well, you also don't want to be right on the wall either. You have to be a little bit off the wall, to the right, off the wall that's to your left. So you want to be a little to the right, but then right on the bottom wall. Nonetheless, we're at Vitreous. We've got the silver arrows. He's gonna go for some quick kills using the tempered sword. Doesn't really matter. Same amount of time, just as long as you kill all the small eyeballs before Viddy pops out of the slime once. And now we're just down to the 2 bow-locked dungeons.
Yep. Also, Fuzzy just ended up losing a lot of time and then saving footing after failing a YBA. Or a, fake flute.
Alright, so he does apparently still have a blue potion in reserve. He might be saving that for Ganon, possibly. Or he's just gonna fake flute over to Pod anyway.
Dang, that was swag. So we will have to still do Agatu after this, since he elected not to earlier. But otherwise...
And we did already clear out most of Eastern through a previous trip, so that's just going to be a rush to the boss. So once we find the big key here in Palace of Darkness, it's just going to be a boss rush for Armos and then all the way up to Agatu.
Also, I don't think we ever saw Skullwoods, did we?
Nope, never went in there. Nor Turtle Rock, for that matter.
Man, what a nice seed.
I mean, you say that, but logically we were supposed to go into Ice Palace before we found our Moon Pearl.
That's not that bad. I still want to see a moon pearl on Pedsy one of these days. Quake. Alright, well that's not required today. Chex just needs to find the big key in here. Alright, well, no big key in here.
Just a few spots left, the harmless hellway, the dark maze, and the vanilla chest. And there it is.
Alright, he now no longer has to open any other chests. Like, anywhere. Because he's already got the big key at Ganon's Tower and Eastern Palace.
Getting a nice little slow dash thanks to the block from the Cane of Samaria there.
Is that just lag, or is that something just messed up in the game?
It's a bit of a glitch. It can also happen with bombs, but it has to do with something that you've created that you've thrown.
Huh. Well then, more you know.
Oh, seems like we got a frame-perfect explosion there. So, when the bomb lands, for some reason, it gets a value of -1, which the game then interprets to being 255. And if the bomb happens to explode on that particular frame, then the explosion also gets displaced by that same value. So, you got a bit unlucky there.
I didn't even know of that, but that kind of sounds like spooky almost.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing as spooky. It's just that when you create a bomb, the altitude is automatically set to 0 for that object. So you only get that displacement if it happens to explode on the same frame as that landing.
So the Fuzzy some issues trying to get a glitch on the mountain, and then was trying to fake loot and failed, and used his potion, and then save and quit, and decided to forfeit after.
Alright, so now just a quick trip through Eastern, all the way up to Armos. We've already got the big key, just a gauntlet up to the boss.
Alright, well that's all the dark rooms for today. And this Armos fight, blink and you miss it.
There's our ice rod. Not that we need it.
Yeah, we're totally gonna go finish off Conductor Rock for no reason.
Alright, we're gonna see another clip into Ganon's tower because loading that crystal cutscene once you have all 7 is really gosh darn slow. So we'd rather just bypass that when we can.
Whee!
Alright, Mimic Room 1 down, on for the second one.
And there's the
Nice
second
and quick
one.
with those silver arrows. And once we're past this bridge of cannonballs, we're gonna head up to the gauntlets, a series of 5 rooms that get progressively harder. First off, we're just with a bunch of little enemies. Nothing too tough, but then we're going to go ahead and add in a Beamos on a conveyor.
And just bomb us all these rooms and get it done with. That's my strategy.
Well, the next room we had some spikes, and then the next one we had some ice. And then even more ice, plus another fireball shooter. So they do get progressively harder as you go along. Nice quick land molas too, and now we're reaching the upper portions of Ganon's tower. Just a couple of torch rooms. And Moldorm 2 until we face off against Geometry Wizard.
I used to have so much trouble with this room. Just could not get it, ever.
Alright, he's gonna try for a hover here. Oh, almost gets it first try. Alright, time for our geometry lesson. What do you got for us, Aghanim? That's the first hit on one phase. A little bit desynced. Unfortunately misses that second hit on the second phase.
Ooh, almost got that.
Yeah, but that one guy being really desynced is working against him a fair bit here.
Just get a double on that one. Ooh, nice. And that's Aga 2 down.
Now all we've got left is the Ganon fight, and we've got more than enough errors to finish that one off.
And we're fluting in the dark world with the flute we don't have.
What do you mean? We just picked it up.
We did?
Yeah.
Ew. It's... Well, still.
Ooh, he doesn't quite get the trident spin on the first phase here, so he might be going for a two-part phase 1 and then hopefully one for phase 2 here. Gets a good pattern for it, so he's just got to do a few spins here while dodging the fire bats. Doesn't even use the hookshot to dodge him. And now we're in phase 3. One hit per side of the wall that he drops down. Almost misses that second hit there. Now we're into phase 4.
Did you find the arrows in Dark World? Yes, they're the ones we're about to kill you with.
He does get the torch glitch. I think he thought he didn't get it, so he was making sure he got both the torches lit. And there is our last arrow. Chexhuman finishes the seed with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 35 minutes, and 1 second. Drop your GGs in chat for Chexhuman. Go ahead and follow the runners if you can over at the link in chat. Give some support to FuzzyGames and give your congrats to Chexhuman.
He will in fact be joining us for an interview.
So just give us a moment while we set that up.
Hello and welcome, GG's.
GG.
I saw what you were trying to do with that, with opening the Meyer Palace, but it didn't quite work the way you intended, I think.
I was just experimenting.
Did you actually get lost on that bit of the overworld there a little bit?
Yeah, I totally got lost. But I was also looking for a map and I didn't have one up.
Well, congratulations on finishing the seed.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
you probably are wondering what happened to your opponent, I imagine.
Yes, I am.
So, what happened, he didn't crash or anything, so... But, he was trying to clip off the mountain to do something. We were thinking graveyard ledge or something. But he kept getting soft locked, and then he tried to YPA and failed, and then save and quit, and then he just decided to forfeit after that.
Yeah, he wasn't using the consistent setup for the graveyard ledge clip with the spin speed, and I think he was trying to do some sort of dash jump method for it, and just couldn't get it to work. And then that, combined with losing the potion after a save and quit from not getting the YBA correctly, was just kind of the nail in the coffin for that.
Gotcha.
Although we didn't see Ice Palace until you finally went in there.
Oh, okay.
We figured that the mirror was in there pretty early on, considering we had the equipment for it early. But neither of you did that until, well, you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I figured the mirror had to be in there to make Pearl logical, and I couldn't think of any other location it could be in. I just wanted the hammer first, so I was able to find it, luckily, before going in there.
Yeah, that's what I figured you were doing when you didn't go to Ice Palace immediately, that you're using your blue potions to hopefully get the pearl first and then go find what you needed to fully clear it.
Yeah.
And also, I almost missed you using Fake Worlds after Thieves Town to go check the dig spot. I thought you might have forgotten that you were in Fake World at that point and were heading down to Stumpy, but then I remembered, oh wait, you got that shovel in Thieves Town Attic, so you were able to put that to good use.
Yeah, exactly. That was the plan.
You also seemed like you were on your way to Skull Woods at some point, but then you turned around and headed straight for the flippers that I think you had just gotten from...
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was thinking for about 5 minutes, that I should do Skull Woods, but then I realized it was a pendant and I had other more important things to do.
Right, because you had just killed Landmolas at that point. You were kind of heading through town, but then just turned around and went to get your flippers off of Sahasrahla.
Yeah, so I wasted a bit of time there, but I figured I didn't need to go.
Yeah, you wasted a bit more time getting lost in mire.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Nah, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
I was just I just had to show off that ether effect, which is
it
fun.
was a little. It was a little different than what I think you. But it was still kind of cool to see the screen scroll like that.
Yeah, the screen scroll was, I guess, because I was moving.
Yeah.
But, oh well. Part of the fun.
Alright, well, GG, any last thoughts before we wrap things up here?
It was the lightest Sphere 1 I've ever seen. Basically, all I could find was 4 items, including 2 gloves and 2 swords, a cape and a bottle. So, quite an interesting, just nothing out there in the light world. And then everything was linear, from Bombos to Mirror and Ice Palace, I guess. And then there was some bait about going to Hera for a unique item, but I forgot about it after Ganon's Tower and just went to Mire, and luckily that was the answer anyway. So.
Oh man, that must have been good to find that bow.
Yeah. just it was helpful to you know, get into go mode and finish here. I really appreciate you all commentating in the meantime.
Yeah, it was enjoyable.
Was definitely an interesting seed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have your next race scheduled?
Well, I think that's it for me. This is the second race.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you guys had done the first one already or not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm sure we've already raced. So, yeah, this is all for now.
Alright, well, we're just gonna let the credits finish out here real quick. But yeah, thanks for the race.
As always, it was fun. Looking forward to seeing what happens in the rest of the tournament. It's it's a randomizer and anyone could win, but and it can be frustrating going around Hyrule every time, but it's fun to perform glitches and navigate around, so it's a fun mode. Fun mode to play.
The freedom of movement kind of crossed with the ability to go anywhere makes it kind of frustrating to find everything sometimes.
Yeah.
Alright, well. GG's.
I don't think we have anything else on SpeedGaming happening right now. This might be the last race of the night. So we'd like to thank you all for joining us. We do have the yeah, I think most of the other stuff that is going on the other SpeedGaming channels is wrapping up at around this time.
Yeah, probably. Looks like there's... oh, that's this one. Maybe still the daily? Probably not, though.